Appreciate you all joining us. I'm Will LaVeist,
And I'm Eric Claville.
and you've tuned into LaVeist and Claville, smart talk without all the noise, breaking down the Black issues you care about with real facts, telling it straight from a college-educated, streetwise Black male perspective.
Because to us, that's the way it is.
Today's show, the Trump legacy. Eric, you remember back in the election, 2015, I'll give you your props. You called it. You said Trump was going to win. You were on Barbara Ham Lee's show, Another View, down in Norfolk, Virginia. And we all said you were crazy because that's what the polls were saying at the time. That's what anybody that had any sense was saying at the time. And especially me being a New Yorker and growing up and being very, very familiar with Trump and his shenanigans over the years, I just thought that it was no way anybody was going to take him seriously. As you see, he had no shot at all at winning New York. Never won New York. I don't even think he's gone back there at all for any kind of rally or anything like that. Maybe upstate New York.
Right.
But you did. You called it. We give you your props. And you remember after the election, I said on Barbara's show again, we were on there, and I said that I think, as crazy as this sounds and as distraught as everybody is, that his presidency would, in some strange way, actually be good for America in the sense that it was going to force us as a nation to really look at who do we really say we are, who do we believe that we are, and who are we going to be. And so lo and behold, as all of the 4 years, things that have happened, where are we at right now? We got people who stormed the Capitol, the center of democracy, not just for the country, the center of democracy on the planet is the U.S. Capitol, because the United States is the nation that models democracy. And we got our own citizens storming the democracy because they were urged on by Donald Trump, who has since now become the first president in the history of the nation to be impeached twice. So what does that tell you? What's your thoughts on, his legacy and what this is going to mean?
Well, Will, I want to go back to the Another View, the radio show that we were on. Again, shout out to our sister, Barbara Ham Lee, Lisa Godley.
Yes, we love you.
And they've been holding it down in the Hampton Roads area on WHRO, WHRV for years. And they've been the voice of African-American issues from an African-American perspective.
Right.
But in 2015, when you had 17 people, 17 candidates vying for the Republican nomination, of course, during the roundtable, the question was, who do you think is going to win? And I said, this man, Donald Trump, is going to get the Republican nomination. You guys laughed me out of the studio, but before you did, I told you why. And it was because he had tapped into the heartbeat of white America. Now, I make a distinction because at the end of the day, America is about privileges. Who has it and who does not? Now, I'll say this. Every white American, every non-Black American do not have the feelings that what we have seen happen on our Capitol, the siege, the insurrection, the violent mob that we saw during the time period of the Civil War. Everyone doesn't have that heartbeat. Some people are voting for Trump for different reasons. What those reasons are, I don't know, but they did it. Now, with that being the case, if we go back into history, go back into the public policy, go back to our Constitution, we see where our country was created specifically for white males, Anglo-Saxon Protestant, of privilege, access, and education. Now, eventually, other white males did not have the wealth or the education or those other areas of access were incorporated into the workings of society for their benefit.
Right.
But African Americans, Blacks who were slaves at the time, did not have the opportunity to participate fully in the American experiment. Native Americans who were undergoing genocide at the time did not have the opportunity. Women did not have the opportunity. And anyone who was non-white Anglo-Saxon Protestant males. Okay.
There's definitely a caste system rooted in race and class and gender. Definitely.
That's right. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. That's what we had created. Now we're talking from the time of the founding of the country, and we look at that. Some look at that as the landing of Europeans here in America. Some look at that as the landing of enslaved Africans in 1619. Some look at that during the time of our creation of our Constitution. Wherever time you look at it, that principle of caste and privilege existed from day one.
You said something about, Virginia. You think about Thomas Jefferson, who wrote Notes on Virginia, whose document was very much at the root of the Constitution and Bill of Rights and all these other historical documents, where he talked about, inferiority of Black people and so forth, and no rights. And then at the same time, he's got a relationship with a Black woman. So it shows how you can be a racist and a white supremacist and still have relationships and intimate relationships and bear children with Black people. Yeah. So you're right.
Because, and then Will, you mentioned how a person can believe in a social order and create public policy and support it for their reasons, but in their personal relationships, they end up having intimate relationships or good friendships with those same people that they want to keep in a certain order. So it's a mixed bag, but at the end of the day, it still adds up to, one group of individuals subjecting the rest or others to inequities and inequalities. But I want to go back to how he tapped into the heartbeat of white America at that time period. If you notice, before Donald Trump, we had 8 years of Barack Obama. Now, you would think that the election of a Black man and a Black family in the White House who served without scandal, who served exemplarily through all of his administration. Now, through policy, and I have, and you have, and others have given constructive criticism for not going too far, for not going far enough for the people that didn't have, more specifically African Americans, right? So that constructive criticism is there. But at the end of the day, he served with excellence, without scandal, and our country became stable because we had 8 years of President Bush, who basically took a surplus that President Clinton put our country on, spent it in about 18 months, like a trust fund, and took us into wars that we know now that we never should have been in, right? So we wasted a lot of finance, a lot of capital, a lot of influence, a lot of good lives of brave soldiers and people that were killed in those in those wars that we're still kind of sort of in, right? So if we look at that and move ahead, we look at the financial crisis that really took a lot of white Americans out of good paying 6-figure jobs that they never got back, right? So now you had the backlash on Wall Street. Now you had an underrumbling of the birthing movement, which was a racist movement saying that this man wasn't born here. Now you have white resentment of a situation, of a country, of a caste system, of a privilege system that was meant for them. But now we see Black people, we see non-white people rising up above us. Something's got to be wrong. So I think it also goes a little bit further. I believe that 2021 is 1861 all over again. 1861 was the start of the Civil War, where one part of white America literally said, we're not going to allow equity and equality of a certain group of people, enslaved Africans. And we're going, instead of working together, we're going to split the country. And we went through a bloody 4-year war from 1861 with the first shot fired at Fort Sumter, South Carolina. But I believe the first legal shot that was fired was the Dred Scott case, which I believe, and others, I teach constitutional law, civil rights. I believe that believe that was the worst case decided ever by the U.S. Supreme Court. It stated, in effect, by the Chief Justice, Taney, that there are no rights that any Black man has that any white man is bound to respect. That sealed what I believe was the apex of white privilege. Right?
Yeah, the caste system that sealed it. This is the permanent position of these groups of people.
That's it. So now we have a society that operates around that. But what happened after the Civil War, where during the time of Reconstruction, where we had a great opportunity to reconstruct our nation from the evils of its past, we did not stamp out the hatred of discrimination, the hatred of the caste system that we created and the terrible public policies of the slave codes and the black codes eventually that led to limiting African Americans and other people who are not Anglo-Saxon Protestant white males from achieving or having the opportunity operating in society.
So you're saying in some sense that the Obama administration was that sort of second Reconstruction or the beginnings of the second Reconstruction when that opportunity was there to sort of remake or have America truly be the promise that it said it wants to be in terms of equality. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. And I like that. As a matter of fact, if you don't mind, I might use that to write an article. An op-ed. But
you can use that long term. I might want to copyright that. I'll make residuals down the road.
Yeah, I mean, because hindsight is always 20/20, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there were a lot of great things that we could have done as a country during that time period, but we refused. You had those that acted out, that wanted to show themselves and show who they are. And what Trump did in his presidency after he won, he took the foot off of the head of the proverbial serpent of racism, hatred, and discrimination, and gave a bully pulpit, gave a bullhorn, and gave an okay by limiting our federal offices from keeping their foot up on the head of those actors, those individuals. Mm-hmm. And what has happened is we saw Charlottesville. Charlottesville happened right here in our backyard, here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, where we saw these individuals start to operate as if this was, again, 1861 again. Mm-hmm. I mean, we saw images that literally, made us cringe.
Yeah.
Again, we didn't have the individuals that had the opportunity and access and the ability to stamp that out did not rise to the occasion. We saw it again in Michigan just recently, where militiamen started training to kidnap the governor of Michigan and the governor of Virginia and others. I mean, come on, this is 2020, 2021. We can't make this up, right? And we also saw the horrific, shameful, disgraceful actions of a violent mob of white supremacists descend upon our U.S. Capitol at the behest of our president and wanting to cause a violent overturning of a lawful election. So the legacy of the Trump administration on day one, it started out as a lie during his inauguration by saying he had more people there than Obama, which clearly, you don't even have to count. You just look at the pictures.
Right.
He had more white spots in where people would be standing for an inauguration and what I call ball spots, right? Then you can count. But unfortunately, it started on a lie. It progressed with disinformation and more lies, and it culminated in an insurrection. So I think that's the Trump administration in a nutshell.
Yeah, I agree with you, very much so, in how he essentially pimped that undercurrent of America, that racist undercurrent that is almost always, like you mentioned, a snake is almost always ready to rear its ugly head.
That's right.
What I also think is nuanced about this and that is often not talked about is how the Republicans, or those who would be the Democrats rather, and those who would be, on the opposing side of Trump, also opened the back door to allow such a thing to happen. Similarly, you mentioned 1861, similarly to how the North entered into deals with the South for removal of federal troops after the Civil War, which opened the door for, again, that snake, that racism, to rear its ugly head. Because let's be honest, the same racism is racism. So I'm from the North. I'm from the segregated North. You're from the segregated South. What do I mean by that? That racism, that strain also exists in the North. It's just played out in a different, maybe perhaps more subtle way, depending on the situations, depending on the circumstances. So what has also happened here is as you go back into history and you pull these strings together, is that the Democrats coming out of the Bush administration, coming out of the Clinton administration, there's been a feeling of certain segments of the society that the society is not working for us.
Yeah.
And so this is where we also remember the Occupy Wall Street movement. What were people talking about? The society is not working for us in the way it is. You know, we need a more just society that's working for everyone across the board. And this is something that Bernie Sanders had tapped into in terms of a politician who was really speaking to that. So you had people who, as I go back and I remember the Obama election, I was blessed to be there to cover it as a reporter. I was there in Denver, in the stadium. I saw a variety of people, all colors of people who were really putting their hopes into him in belief that here's someone who is honest, who is going to not be a typical politician, who's not coming from money, who is going to see and understand my pain and work for a more just society that is going to work for us, the common people. And so I think what also happened with his Democrat, those were his lofty goals as well, but his colleagues still staunched in that old way of doing things that didn't work during the Bush administration, that you know, that wasn't working through the Clinton administration. Again, let's be honest about this. They didn't get on board and really tap into the strain in the country of people who really, truly wanted to see America that worked for everybody. So they opened the door for it. So after 8 years of Obama, and I put all my faith in this hope, change you can believe in, keep hope alive message. 8 years later, we got all this partisan politics going on that Republicans with the Tea Party movement, the whole thing, didn't want Obama to succeed. And you also had Democrats who were culpable because they weren't, again, tapping into this energy that the country seriously wanted it to work for everyone. So there's a certain logic to the illogic of voting for Trump, in that here's another guy that's coming who's not a politician, who's saying, I'm going to clean up the swamp. He's gotten wealth, we think. You know, I remember interviewing Dick Gregory, the late great Dick Gregory, telling me that boy that boy don't have a quota. He told me stuff is broke, and we're finding that out to be the truth. That yes, he is broke. Yeah. But he came saying, "Hey, I'm going to clean up the swamp. I'm going to," and he was talking to these folks' issues in a way that other politicians weren't. So remember, Hillary Clinton, what did she call those folks? Deplorables.
Deplorables, yeah.
Right? Even Mitt Romney, as a Republican, he was caught on tape in a hot mic moment, caught on tape talking about, you know, these individuals and why don't they just pick themselves up by the bootstrap? Why don't they just get a loan and so forth? So there's this issue of class that both sides, I feel, failed to tap into, which made it easy, or as you said, for Trump to tap into it. He was shrewd enough as a salesman and as a con artist and as a pimp to tap into it. And that's why you see, that's also a big piece of this that is often not being talked about, but that's the logic behind why a lot of people did vote for him, even though they absolutely did not, subscribe to his behavior. Yeah. But they voted for him because this is a guy, maybe Obama couldn't do it. Maybe this guy will make changes and shake up the system to such a degree that it will start working for it. But what we've seen is, again, like I said on Barbara's show, America is being brought to the brink.
Yeah. And Will, you keep in mind, race is going to be a part of anything that we do in America because we were constructed on a race class, period. So when people say, why you got to talk about race? Because race is what we're built up on. And that is the legacy of European colonialism as well. And I'll make a note about European colonialism. I think we're seeing the influence of European colonialism, meaning a ruling power structure, start to crack. Because during the Black Lives Matter movement across the world, especially Europe, you saw individuals taking the statues that represent European colonialism, which represents lies, started to be torn down. You start to see the truth about Christopher Columbus, who Spike Lee called the terrorist on high seas. And that's a very, I think, a very proper designation, because every country that European colonial powers went, they went to discover, steal, kill, destroy, and recreate a society for them. And it's interesting that the only country they really weren't able to do that in was mainland China. So we see a power structure that is creating where we have a dual, we'll probably end up having a dual power structure, which because America was weakened under President Trump.
Also, Ethiopia wasn't colonized either. Ethiopia.
Right.
But I think that we find ourselves here where we're confronted with who do we really want to be. And I think that the problem that I have is I still see there being a weak analysis of what is really going on. There's still finger pointing. Again, if as I sit here and I say, you got to look at the fact that 70 million people, almost half of the country, still did vote for Trump.
Yeah, after Charlottesville.
Yeah. And again, all of those people are not illogical, and all those people are not just racist. What I believe a lot of those people were voting for is I'm trying to roll the dice here and somehow get to a country where this nation is going to start working for me.
Yeah.
And maybe this guy and all of his craziness, maybe the craziness is what we need to shake up the traditional politicians to actually make some move, make some policies, to actually do some things that's going to change something. And so now I see his legacy as exposing all of these dirty laundry, all of this ugliness, to the point where, okay, is Joe Biden and the Kamala Harris administration going to finally lead Democrats, as well as is there going to be a bipartisan effort on the Republican side to actually say, okay, let's pay attention and really tap into what is really the American people are asking for, is a nation that begins to work for the common good, for the majority of the people, as opposed to us governing just to advance our own self-interest, or just to win at any cost, or just to make the next victory, as if this is some type of game. Because you're a political consultant. A lot of times these elections, as I cover them as a reporter, it plays out like it's some kind of game. It's just about winning or losing, and my side, and that's it.
Right. But Will, I think you hit the nail on the head with the problem of what the system sees as an educated and involved voter electorate, right? Mm-hmm. So when you understand how the game works, then that's when you start to worry that individuals are going to start demanding more of what government is and can do. But I believe that an informed society, an engaged society, is a better society, hands down. And ultimately, if you meet the needs of the people, they're always going to work for the good of the country. I'd never forget when I was in the military, I did something before the men that I was over at the time, and my first sergeant pulled me to the side. And I actually had chow before them. We were in a field exercise. And he told me that I can go. He said, Claville, you can go ahead and eat. And I said, I already ate first, sergeant. He pulled me to the side. He was a very tall, very big, imposing man. And he looked me in the eyes. He said, never eat before your men. Always take care of your men first, and your men will always take care of you. And that's stayed with me throughout my life, because it also goes back to service. When you're given an opportunity to serve in public office, serve as a CEO, president, or have individuals under you, always take care of them first. And they will take care of you. They will take care of the organization. They'll take care of the mission. And if we go back to that, or actually start doing that as a country, we're going to have we don't have to say make America great again, which is a racist statement within itself. We'll say how great can America be, because everyone will start pouring into it. But I think we need to really take a look at the lessons learned from the Trump legacy and understand what the Trump legacy is. The Trump legacy itself is a legacy of lies. It's a legacy of hatred. It's a legacy of discrimination. It's a legacy of being self-serving. And it's a legacy that is a black eye, not just in America, but across the world. Because as you stated, with the violent insurrection and the mob in Washington, D.C. that we saw, I thought that was the exclamation point at the end of the Trump legacy of his administration, because it shows that the stain, the black eye that it gave to democracy in America. I said, listen, that day was a terrible day for us. It was a terrible day for democracy, but it was a good day for every enemy, every dictator, every person that we've lectured in the world to say that you should not treat your people like this, that you should have free and fair elections. I think they were sitting back saying to ourselves, look at America. But one thing I do want to say, and I think we all have to understand that American exceptionalism is real because we are exceptional. So we're going to get through this, but Will, like you said, in order to do this, we've got to learn from our mistakes of the past. We've got to properly interpret and label the problems that we see in society and ensure that we don't repeat them again. So we'll see what the next 4 years hold. But as the history books have started to be written about this legacy of our soon-to-be former President Trump, it's one where we have to take stock of ourselves and understand that this country only works when it works for everyone.
Well, we got to wrap. And I'll add to that, when we think about what Black people need to do, we got to stay engaged. Can't take the feet off the pedals. We got to stay engaged, and we got to we got to hold our political leaders accountable.
That's right.
Got to hold them accountable.
Yeah.
So with that, as we wrap up, special thanks to our producer, Ben Bailey, who keeps everything right and tight behind the scenes. Check us out weekly as we discuss Black issues in order to empower you and all of us to do the things that we must do to thrive.
And look, follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and our website at LaVeistandClaville.com. And if you have any questions, email us at LaVeistandClaville@gmail.com. Because at the end of the day, that's the way it is.